This video is brought to you by Squarespace.
Hey, indie filmmakers, I'm Nick Bodmer.
I'm Griffin Hammond, and today I'm in New York City for work, and I have a new MacBook Pro M1 Max computer I'd like to show you.
That's exciting.
In fact, we got a question on our last episode from Sam, who asked, are you going to do a podcast episode on the new MacBook Pro M1?
And the answer is, of course, yes. Yes, we are.
Yeah, you specifically said, yes, I have many thoughts.
Many thoughts.
I guess let's just start with what's your biggest thought? Why is this exciting?
This is very, I don't know, you weren't were you super into computers 20 years ago? Like when we were school aged?
I mean, I remember when we were in high school, you helped me spec out and build my first the computer I was going to take to college. And I remember we got a special capture card for video production, and that was really exciting, like the Matrox something. And I feel like it was expensive. It was
very,
it might have been
very. But when I was a kid and even younger than high school and stuff, it felt like every couple years something crazy would happen with computers, and they would get way faster. There was some breakthrough. But I don't know, in the last 10, 15 years, it's been really small incremental improvements. We've kind of it seemed like the days of a big boom, huge change in computing were kind of over. But That's kind of what this is. These M1 Pro and Max chips are a giant leap forward in performance and in power usage, power utilization, efficiency, I guess is the word I'm looking for. And it's exciting. It's exciting again to be reading articles about processors and chips, and it's kind of a new way of doing things. And you've got one in your hands. I don't have one yet. We did that episode before where we checked out my M1 MacBook Air that I got, 8 months ago or something, and we were impressed by its performance for being such a tiny little computer. But now they've kind of stepped it up a notch to a pro level.
Right, now I'm working with the maxed out version of that M1 processor. And to your point about the power efficiency, for practical reasons, that's why I'm most interested in this computer is, I think I was due for an upgrade anyway. We'll talk about the old computer I had and what this can do differently. But that's the main thing is I just needed better battery life, and the idea that I can edit and not burn through my battery as quickly is exactly what I need.
Yeah, it's not just fun for you. It's kind of a work necessity. You were limited before in many ways by how much power you had available to you, it sounds like.
Right. Well, yeah, I'll tell you a quick story about what happened on my last work trip and why I'm excited to have this computer now. Last time I traveled for work, I was on a private jet. This was this weird thing where I was running around right before election day.
Griffin, fancy.
And it wasn't I bought the private jet. It was the private jet was already happening for a different production, and I was invited to come along. And so I was lucky to be on this plane. But my whole deal was that I had to shoot things on the ground, and then we would jump on the plane, and we'd only be in the air for 45 minutes. And then we'd land, and I'd have to deliver this video product. So I had to edit them in the air. And my last MacBook Pro, which I got in 2017, it was already, maybe the battery is diminished. I should check out its battery health. But I would load all this footage in, bring it into Final Cut, do my editing, do my rendering, do my exporting, and I'd get 25 minutes into this process. And granted, I'm doing the most intensive things you can do on this computer, but after 25 minutes, I would deplete the entire battery. And then I'd have to go, I'm trying to work off battery, but then I'd have to go to the back of the plane and unplug a coffee maker and plug in my laptop to try to finish the job. I'm just trying to do
at least it was a private
edit.
plane where they let you do that, because on Southwest, I think they frown on you adjusting the equipment.
If it was on a real plane, I'd probably have an outlet in my seat. But
you fly fancy airlines. I fly
know,
Southwest.
A lot of planes have out. Yeah, maybe Southwest doesn't.
There's no outlets on Southwest.
Right. But and then by contrast, this new computer, I had it in the office yesterday. I had it plugged in while I was in the office, and then I was packing up to go to my hotel room, and I've been kind of leaving my suitcase here at the office because I'm actually going to get on a plane today right from here. But part of me was just I can just leave the charging block here at the office. This battery seems like it'll just do do fine. And I used it for like 2 or 3 hours in my hotel, like last night and this morning. And I think I dropped from 100% to 89% battery. So it's like, I get the feeling that this computer could, definitely support a couple hours, maybe 3 hours of like intense editing. And I feel like it could probably go 24 hours of just like normal use without even worrying about plugging in.
It's kind of amazing.
Which to me is the big deal. I mean, it's great that it can like export quickly. But yeah, I just need it to like last.
So do you want to talk about your old computer that you replaced, or do you want me to do a quick overview of the new kind of options that came out on these processors?
Well, yeah, why don't you talk about the new features, and then we'll talk about my old computer and why I needed to upgrade and what I was looking forward to.
Will do. Okay. So Apple released new MacBook Pros, a 14-inch and a 16-inch, so kind of replacing the 13 and 15, which were the old models. They had the 16-inch, but new design, new everything. So we're pretty excited about that. But inside them are these new M1 Pro and M1 Max chips. So the first M1s came out, I don't know how long ago that was. Has it been a year? Maybe it's been a year. Not quite a year, I'm guessing. But they're very consumer-focused, basically... really focused on efficiency. They were really fast. We were super impressed, but they just weren't focused on the pro workloads. And now we have these chips that are. So the CPU performance is the same between the Pro and the Max. So they're 10-core CPUs, 8 performance cores, 2 high-efficiency cores. And then the real difference is in the GPU. So the GPU goes from 16-core to 32-core on the Max. And the Max can support more RAM, which is kind of important for some of the stuff we do.
Yeah.
And then the final thing is they've built in, I don't know if you heard about the Mac Pro, that came out a couple years ago. They had this thing called the Afterburner card. Have you heard of that?
No, I don't know what that is.
So it's basically a card that went into a Mac Pro that did ProRes encode decode, like a hardware offload for it, to really make like ProRes stuff work faster, like with Final Cut.
Yeah.
And they've basically built that into the CPU now. So both the Pro and the Max have hardware encode decode for ProRes, among other things, H.264, H.265, things like that.
Well, and considering that everything, if I turn on background render in Final Cut Pro 10, it is encoding into ProRes. I think that's the render format. So then if you go to export ProRes at the end of a project, it should just happen very quickly. But you're saying now all that rendering, when it's creating ProRes, is it using this?
Yeah, for the encode. And then once it's in ProRes, it can obviously use all that hardware offload, so it's not hitting your CPU during the editing process.
Right.
So it's super efficient, super performant. And actually on the Max, they've doubled those hardware encode decode units for the ProRes. So the Max can actually even do it faster than the Pro.
Yeah.
So big differences between the Pro and the Max. Same CPU. GPU is twice as big on the Max. So if you're doing After Effects or a lot of anything that's GPU heavy, you might want to look at the Max. We can do double the RAM from 32 gigs to 64 gigs, and it actually doubles the RAM's memory interface, so it can actually communicate with the RAM faster, and you get those doubled hardware encode decode units. So both chips are amazing. I think for a lot of high-end videography work, the Max makes a ton of sense because you probably want the RAM, and you probably will use those encode decode units. And that's what you got, which is great.
And like, I wouldn't have guessed that I would have essentially maxed out this product. But I mean, this is just like, this is just like the genius of Apple marketing, or like the evilness of Apple like pricing. Like, once we started pricing out the different options, like Pro versus Max. I mean, you obviously are all for me spending as much of my money as I can on a Mac. Like, you're just interested in it. But we were looking at like the Pro versus the Max, and I thought, like, of course I don't need the Max. But it's like they price everything so incrementally. It's like just small enough of an increment that like we were essentially looking at like two computers where the more expensive one was like $200 more. And it was like, well, if I'm already going to do this and that and that, and
it's such a small fraction of the overall cost. It's basically free.
Right. Yeah. In the end, I ended up with a pre-tax computer that is $3,899, so just shy of $4,000, which I knew I was going to spend. Like my last MacBook in 2017 was a $3,400 computer. So I already knew this was going to be like $35 or up. And yeah, I mean, like once we decided on Max, and then we were looking at 16 versus 32, and the difference wasn't that big. And then the difference between 1 terabyte of SSD and 2 terabyte, it wasn't that big. So we ended up with, I have the Apple M1 Max chip with 10-core CPU, 32-core GPU. I barely know what any of that means. I have 32 gigs of internal memory, RAM, and then 2 terabytes of SSD storage. And that works out to, after tax, it actually works out to like $4,100.
Ooh.
Yeah. I will say,
but you will use this use your last one for 4 years, and this is a machine that you rely on super heavily for your work. I mean, it makes sense, I think, and it may be a little overkill. It may be a little overkill for what you do today, right? But if it's going to last for 4 years, you don't want to skimp and then in 3 years be like, gosh, it's really not doing what I needed to do. That I'm doing, 16K renders or whatever it's going to be.
Well, and I will say, if anyone wants to save $280 off the price of this configuration, I ordered this not immediately after the announcement. When did I order it? Maybe it was like 6 hours after the.
Yeah, I mean, we had a little chat about it, which delayed your delivery.
Right. Yeah. So maybe I could have gotten it quicker if I was faster. But I ordered it right on October 18th. I guess that was the day that Apple announced it. They originally told me it was going to take 5 to 6 weeks to deliver, that I wouldn't get it until December. And so then I also went to B&H and ordered the same thing. And I love B&H because if anyone orders from B&H and you don't know about this, you should use this. They have something called a Paybu card, which is essentially just a credit card for the B&H store. And instead of cash back, they give you the amount of your sales tax back as a reward that just actually comes right off the charge. So you ring up your $38.99 computer, and if you have this Paybu card, whatever your sales tax is, they just subtract it out. So $38.99 is what you pay. So I had the two orders simultaneously, and then was just waiting to see which one was shipped first. And the Apple one jumped up much quicker, and it showed up like last week, like the beginning of November.
Yeah, because it was saying like late November at first, right?
Yeah. So I kind of had this moment where I was like, oh, I really wanted to save the $280 on tax. And tax is different.
But you wanted that computer.
But I thought it's the unknown of I don't know when it's going to show up. And I'm actually really glad that I have the computer right now and I can bring it on this trip with me. This is exactly the use case. It's like I want to be able to get on a plane.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I want to mention, so we talked about the chip, okay, but there's other changes to the laptop beyond just how amazing the chip is, which gives it super great performance and battery life. They went backwards on a bunch of changes they made in the last 5 years and gave us a bunch of ports back, which is I'm kind of an Apple fanboy. I think that's pretty clear, but I never thought they would go back on their USB-C only port thing, and that was always frustrating. I take my laptops around with me all the time, and I have to have an HDMI dongle because I present to people all the time. I've got to bring an SD card reader. Those are really the two that kill me the most, and they gave them both back. We've got HDMI out and an SD card slot built in. You got to be excited about the SD card slot, right?
I'm very excited for all these things. Now, for the critics of Apple, there's a meme of all this new innovation, but really this is going back to the features that the old MacBooks had. But yeah, I mean, I needed these things back. I think this is my fourth MacBook Pro over, 15 years or something. And I think the last one is the only one I didn't like. Not that I hated it. I mean, it did most of what I need, but it had all these little quirks that I didn't like. Like plugging in with USB-C for power. I'm sure they could have made the USB-C port a little bit tighter or something. But it was always popping out. And so, there'd be times when I'd get the 10% battery alert and I'd be like, what? I'm plugged in. Oh, no, I'm not. It's 0.5 millimeter out of its port, so it's not actually charging right now. And
now they brought back MagSafe, so know you're charging.
I'm glad I have MagSafe back. They actually made the little cable. The cable is cloth covered now too, which
braided.
Feels nice.
Yeah, cloth. That's nice.
They brought back HDMI, which is really useful because, like you said, I'm using SD cards and HDMI all the time, and I had a little like $80 hyperdrive dock thing that plugged in to my last laptop, which is just one more thing I have to carry around. I love this. I don't have to worry about like breaking off or something. Although it's funny, I noticed they moved some things around. Like they moved the headphone jack from the right side to the left side, which I have to think, unless it was just the arrangement of the internals.
That's a better side because that's the side the cable is always on for headphones. So
right, I gotta think that's
on the left.
That makes more sense because, like, if I don't know if 70% of the users are right-handed, their mouse, if they were using a mouse, might be on the bumping into the headphone cable on the right side. But it's funny because they changed the arrangement of things. Today I was on a Zoom call and I wanted to use this shot, so I had my camera plugged in to an adapter into USB-C. And then I realized, I can use this mic that's in front of me right now on my Zoom call. I just need to run my H5 audio recorder into the computer as an audio interface. It's USB-A, as a lot of things are. And so I needed another USB-C adapter, but I happen to have another one. So I go to plug it in and try to turn on my audio recorder, and it's not getting any power. And I'm like, what? Is it not getting power through this adapter? And then I look over around the computer and I realize I have one USB-C adapter plugged into a USB-C port, and I have the other USB adapter plugged into the SD card slot because I just did it by feel. And I guess the SD card is like exactly the same height. Like it fits nicely. I was like, that's why I'm not getting any power. Cause,
that will do it.
Yeah. But yeah, they, I guess the old computer I had 4 USB-C ports, and now they've taken away one of those because you don't need it for power. Right. They replaced it with the MagSafe. So now there's 2 USB-Cs on the left side and the power and the headphone jack. So yeah, there's like 4 things on the left side, and then on the right side is the HDMI, another USB-C, and the SD card slot.
2 other big changes they made. The touch bar is gone, and like you said in their presentation, they're like, pros love really good keys, so we've put in the best F keys you've ever seen. It's like, okay, well played. But yes,
I mean, that was another thing I didn't
hate
love
the touch
about
bar, but I didn't like it, so I'm glad it's gone.
Yeah, I think it was like an interesting innovation, but yeah, I didn't love it. That was another thing that I wasn't passionate about on my last MacBook Pro, and I mean, really just like for volume control, it was not a great way to not be doing it with tactile buttons. And like, it rarely failed, but there were like 1 out of 100 times or 1,000 times, it would like freeze up or something. It's really weird to think that like there's a moment where you might not be able to change your volume because this like little software bar.
It was actually running like a little version of iOS. It was literally like its own computer in the touch bar, which is kind of dumb. Yeah. But what I really have been waiting to ask you about is the screen. So they increased the resolution. So now at the default, like when you open it up, it's at a true 2x resolution. Before it was like one of those weird scaled modes, where, it wasn't a true 2x retina. So it should be sharper. It's like HDR. It's got ProMotion, which is the 120 hertz variable refresh rate. Basically, everything I've heard is it's like a mini Pro Display XDR built in. It's supposed to be just a phenomenal screen. So I'm interested to hear what your thoughts are, having looked at it.
Well, yeah, I didn't even think much about that when I bought it. That's kind of like every time Apple comes out with any new product, a new iPhone or something, they're always like, oh, the screen's brighter and it's like Retina now. Like they're always improving screen technology. So I just figured like, no big deal. But I did like. The first thing I did with this computer was migrate my data from the previous MacBook Pro. And so I had them sitting next to each other. And instantly I was like, oh, wow, this screen is like really sharp and bright. And it just seems like very vibrant. It does like pop a lot. And then coupled with the fact that the speakers sound better. Like the first time
they claim that. But again, like you said, that's something they say every time. But you think it's a fairly noticeable difference?
It does seem like it, yeah. I mean, I just like showed a YouTube video, one of my own videos to one of my friends, and I pulled out this new laptop and showed it to him, and it really felt more immersive. It's
Sweet.
Brighter and better sound.
Do you edit in HDR? I know Final Cut Pro already supports the screen for HDR editing, so I'm just wondering if that's valuable to you, or if you're not really, if you're still all SDR in your workflow.
I've only done like one HDR product edit, so yeah, I'm not very experienced in that. But are you suggesting that maybe this computer can handle that?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it certainly can.
I guess my other screen wasn't HDR capable. I also like.
Correct.
What does XDR mean? Is that a standard, or is that just like Apple speak?
No, that's their branding.
Yeah. Like, is it the same as an HDR screen, or they're saying like HDR plus Retina equals XDR?
I think it's they're just their own branding. When they came out, the Pro Display XDR, I'm sure they have a definition. Let's find out.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
extreme dynamic range is what they're calling that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I know Final Cut is capable of editing HDR content, and it does seem like the limitation for me has always been the screen. I guess I'm curious if it actually works with the screen and lets me edit truly in HDR.
I am told yes, it does let you truly edit HDR. In fact, I saw somebody editing. One of the things Apple showed was now that you have HDMI, you can easily hook up, like an actual TV maybe next to your editing rig,
right?
And editing on the laptop and previewing out on a real TV. Well, somebody showed actually, if you're editing HDR, the screen on the laptop is what you want to view on. So they moved all their editing timeline up to the TV that was behind their monitor and had just full screen preview on the laptop, so they could see the real HDR. I think that was
right.
Jonathan Morris, and what's that guy's name? Yeah, Jonathan Morrison. He's got some great videos on editing with the new one. So check that out.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll put that. I'll find the link and we'll put it in the show notes.
The only thing I wish that this computer had is I love on the new iMacs they put the Ethernet port on the power block.
Yep.
Which I guess doesn't seem that important on a desktop, but would be really nice on a laptop. I was kind of hoping that they would incorporate that because I would love to plug this in to Ethernet, but of course it doesn't have an Ethernet port. That'd be way too big to throw on this machine. But I'm wondering, I don't think that Apple has made a Thunderbolt 3 or USB-C to Ethernet. In fact, it's kind of confusing. At B&H, they have the Apple Ethernet to Thunderbolt adapter, but it's photographed perfectly flat. So you actually, Thunderbolt 2, which is the adapter, looks like USB-C from above. From
the top, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's that mini DisplayPort looking port, right?
So I ordered this adapter once, like 8 months ago or something, and I had to return it because I realized, it didn't say in the description there was Thunderbolt 2, but it is Thunderbolt 2. So I guess my question is is there a reason Apple doesn't make that product? Is USB-C, just standard USB-C, fast enough to handle Ethernet, so therefore there's no reason to get a Thunderbolt 3 version of this? Yeah.
That's right. And I think third parties make something that works like that. It has a USB-C connector to Ethernet. I think Belkin makes one that Apple sells.
B&H appears to have 20 different products in stock that all do this. And I'm just thinking, why do they carry so many versions of the same thing? But because I'm in New York today, I might actually, and my office is actually very close to B&H, I think I might run over to B&H after this recording and pick up an Ethernet adapter. I also kind of want to get a sleeve or something for this laptop because I'm already feeling very nervous about how much I'm going to scratch it up on the road.
Just use it. That's what I think.
I know.
But I'm the guy who doesn't use a case on his iPhone, though. So.
Yeah. I mean, I'm the guy that is okay with scratching on laptops. I mean, my last MacBook Pro, I actually glued some Velcro onto the back of the screen so that I could Velcro an SSD onto the computer just to help me on the road. When I'm editing on an airplane, I don't need the SSD to slide off the dinner tray or the
another reason why it's nice to get the 2 terabyte or even larger version.
I'm excited to have double the space. Yeah. But I
did not buy one.
I know I'm going to scratch this thing up. I have some really ugly scratches on my last one. They're not, it'd be one thing if there were 1,000 little mini scratches all over it. That's fine.
Just one gouge.
Yeah, it's always one gouge where something rubbed up against it in a certain area. I hate that.
Yeah, my guess is though you'd find a way to scratch it even if you had a sleeve because it's not in it all the time. But
yeah.
So I'm jealous.
I was surprised.
You have one, I don't.
Yeah.
I'm not buying one. I'm not buying one. I'm not buying one. I have to keep telling myself that.
Well, you already have an M1
order
processor.
one.
You have your MacBook Air.
And what I've been tempted. But I'm waiting for the new iMacs. I have a feeling they're going to be pretty phenomenal. The bigger version of the iMacs that hopefully have these same processors. So I want a nice, big, amazing screen. And so I'm holding out hope that next year, hopefully earlier than later, we'll get some M1 Pro, M1 Max iMacs.
And you sent me something about that. Was that a rumor that in the first half of next year they might come out with like a new iMac Pro? Is that?
Yeah, I mean, my guess is there won't be like this. I'm totally guessing at this point. But in the past, they had the smaller iMac, the larger iMac, and then the iMac Pro. I have a feeling that the larger iMac and the iMac Pro are going to kind of be the same computer now moving forward. Mm-hmm. Whether they really end up deciding to call it iMac Pro or not, my guess is they will call it iMac Pro, but it'll just be the big iMac. I don't think they'll have like big iMac that's not a Pro and big iMac that's a Pro. I think that's one product, and it's more of a branding decision what they call it. But I expect it to have the M1 Pro, M1 Max processors. And I'm worried about how much that thing's going to cost, but I'm saving my pennies already because it's going to be my next computer. I'm pretty excited.
Have you upgraded? Are you running on Mac OS Monterey on any of your machines?
I am, yeah. I was going to wait because it's usually best, to wait, but then instead I just upgraded day one because I'm crazy.
Yeah. I generally don't upgrade because, I'm actually still running, Premiere 2019 because, I'm using some templates that we use across our company, and I found that some of them break in the latest versions of Premiere, and so it's just been easier to, as long as I'm collaborating with people, just stick with a lower end version. But I'm kind of the same with the operating system. I don't necessarily want to upgrade because I'm worried it's going to break something. But this new machine came with Monterey, and it does look pretty, but do you feel like there's just so much dead space?
I didn't notice a big change. Where do you mean exactly?
I don't know if this is a setting you can change, but I feel like there's more spacing between a lot of elements in the OS.
Yeah, they're definitely spreading stuff out. I think that's been a trend the last few times. And
maybe that's an acknowledgement of I have a bigger screen and but yeah, to me it just seems like a waste of space.
And were you on Big Sur before, or were you even farther behind?
I don't know. I may have been even farther behind. Who knows?
I was gonna say because if you were even one, because I may have already, I was on Big Sur, so maybe I already experienced some of that spreading out, and I've already gotten used to it. What do you think of the notch?
Oh, the notch is fine. In fact, I can't even see it right now. I mean, it's probably because I have a light on that's shining in my face, so maybe I can't discern contrast as well. Oh, now I can kind of see it. But the top of my screen is black. So the fact that there's a little notch in the middle, it just lives in where that, what's that top bar called?
Menu bar.
The menu bar. It just lives in that, which is it was already an empty space up there anyway. So that's fine by me.
What I've read from people who've had it is you forget about it instantaneously. So don't worry about it. Yeah. There was a lot of, I was a little surprised at how much people were upset about the notch. I was like, well, they made the screen bigger, so I'd rather have the little extra space with the notch than not. But
right. Yeah, this is now a 16-inch screen, and it is noticeably bigger. They've made the bezels smaller to accomplish that, which I thought was all they were going to do. But then when I actually placed this laptop next to my 2017 laptop, my 2017 15-inch, this computer is a few millimeters wider and longer. It is a slightly bigger
and
machine.
thicker. They've made it
thicker.
And that's another thing. They've had this obsession with thin and light, and it's well, pros would rather have battery life and better cooling and stuff that they need to get their work done, and they seem to have moved back in that direction too. So it's a lot of kind of reversing of trends that Apple's had that I think is really a benefit for pros. So
it feels hefty, and I think when they announced it, we were talking about the weight. I think it's half a pound more than my last one, which is, so far it's been fine. But that was the only thing that bothered me about the announcement, was just knowing this is going to be in a backpack carrying through airports. I would prefer you don't add any more weight to my rig, but
would you take that half a pound knowing it's getting you probably an extra hour and a half of editing time on the battery life?
Yeah. And I'm happy that even though it's a tiny bit thicker and a tiny bit wider, I mean, every dimension is a little bit bigger than my last laptop, it still fits perfectly in all the bags. Like even ones where the last one felt kind of tight, like it's not enough. It's not
good.
A significant size increase that it changes my ability to carry it.
Well, I am jealous of your laptop. I'm not going to lie.
Well, we should take a quick break, but afterward I want to talk about the fact that I am surrounded by construction noise right now and why I'm using a different microphone today. And we'll see if you've noticed the difference.
All right. Hey Indie Filmmakers is brought to you by Squarespace. From websites and online stores to marketing tools and analytics, Squarespace is the all-in-one platform to build a beautiful online presence and run your filmmaking business.
One of the things I love about my website, griffinhammond.com, is that it's very flexible in terms of moving pieces around. And I love that at the top of my site, I have this strip of videos that I can feature. I'm very proud of this video that I made with my son Peter, where we're playing with race cars and smoke in the driveway. And so it was very easy for me to highlight that video, add it to the video carousel.
So check out squarespace.com for a free trial. And when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/Griffin and save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain.
So I'm guessing people have probably heard a difference in my audio, because usually I'm using the blue baby bottle. That's the mic you're using, right?
Baby bottle that I'm using, yep.
And I love that mic. We've been using it the entire time we've had this podcast, but it is a mic that picks up a lot of background sound. Mm-hmm. And so it's great in a quiet environment. Right now I am in a new office. There's all this construction. I mean, aside from the normal New York sound, like police cars and stuff, I'm just surrounded by construction sites right now. And there's even like an air horn that goes off every few minutes. And so I've been testing out this very popular podcasting microphone. This is the Shure SM7B. Are you familiar with it?
Yep.
I mean, you see this microphone.
Kind of, you see it everywhere. Yeah, exactly. It looks kind of like a radio-y, broadcasty mic.
Hey, Peter and I wanted to jump into this episode real quick, interrupt for a moment. You had a question about Nick?
Yes.
What was your question?
About his microphone.
Yeah, about his microphone. What's going on with his microphone? You may have just heard a little pop, and Nick's audio suddenly dropped out. And so I was like, oh no, I need some backup audio. But then I looked at the file and I realized we were still getting levels. They were just really low, like negative 30 decibels. So I brought it into Audition, ramped up the gain. Of course, noise comes up when you raise the signal like that. So I also applied a noise reduction. And it still sounds clear enough to play you for the rest of the episode. So for the remaining 6.5 minutes, I'm using this corrected audio.
That is a headphone.
Oh, your headphones are falling off? Yeah. If you're listening in headphones in this episode, you probably would notice. You might not notice if you were listening on kind of crappy speakers. But it's still, the audio is fine to use for the episode, but I just wanted to explain why it sounds a little noisy and weird. And in our next episode, which we already recorded, so it'll come out, I think, in a week, we'll talk about what we think happened and how we're solving it in the future. Do you want to say bye, Pete?
Bye.
Back to the episode. Yeah, a lot of major podcasters use it. I think it's a $400 mic or like just shy of that.
On sale for $359 right now at Shure.com, since I just Googled the model to make sure I was remembering the right one.
But I've been impressed with it so far. One thing I like about it is that it looks nice on camera. I was looking for something to put in front of a host that wouldn't have much personality of its own. The only thing about it is it's so great at rejecting background sound, but you really do have to be on it. Hopefully I've stayed close enough to it this whole recording, but right now my mouth is an inch away from it. I think I did some quick tests where like, even if I'm just a foot away from the mic, it starts to sound much roomier. I mean, you really have to stay on it. And in case that mic fails or is, if I back off the mic too much, I also have here my Audio-Technica 4053B just hanging out also on my mic stand in case I need to cut to it.
double mic.
But I have to say, so this is actually, I'm in New York for work. I'm only here for a couple days. This is the first time I've been here in 18 months since I moved out of the city.
It's got to be kind of fun to be back, right?
Yeah, it reinvigorates that sense of like, there really is that sense in New York of like, if you can make it here, you can make it. Like when you're in New York, you feel like you've made it. Just like walking around the city, it's very exciting and
empowering.
It's confidence boosting, and it's something that you lose when you live here every day. I mean, you feel a little bit of it. It's still an exciting city, but it does take leaving and coming back for me to feel like, wow, I guess it's confidence boosting because I have years of expertise in navigating the city and knowing where things are and how the city works. So it kind of feels good to flex those muscles again.
And as you left kind of during quite the lockdown, right? During COVID, does the city feel more open now than it did when you left?
I mean, yes, because everyone's vaccinated here and everyone wears masks. You hope we get to a place where people don't have to be wearing masks all the time. But right now, it's kind of cool. I mean, that's always kind of been the beauty of New York is like, everyone kind of knows how to operate together in this very dense city. And so it's nice to get on a subway train and see 100% mask compliance. And then you go to a restaurant and you show your vaccine card and everyone in the restaurant is vaccinated, which is nice to know. So it feels like everything's open again. Like because everyone's complying, the city is operational.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
How long are you there till?
After I record this podcast, I'm going to go visit B&H real quick, and then I got to get on a plane back. So I was only here for like 2 nights.
Well, travel safe, my friend.
Yeah, and I'm glad we could squeeze this in.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm
There's
excited to.
I feel like my friend Justin would always say this, that like while he lived in LA, anytime he would come to New York for work or, to get some work done, to do some meetings or something, he would always talk about how like he would get so much more work done on those trips than it felt like when he lived in the city. And I kind of feel like that a little bit, like just coming here for a couple days, I got a lot of great things done for my job, but also like, let's get a podcast in. It kind of motivates you to like, let's do everything, get it all done in the 2 days. Yeah.
Did you get any good bagels? I'm assuming that's something you've missed.
Yeah, I actually.
Oh yeah.
I purposefully stayed. I got a hotel in the neighborhood I used to live in. I mean, my hotel is like a block from my old apartment, and so I get to pretend like I still live here. And I went to all my favorite places. I went to Baz Bagels, which is a great bagel place that we love.
I've been there. I think you took me there.
Yeah. There is like, you have to deal with the craziness of New York. So a lot of places have, and luckily the weather's still nice here, a lot of places have outdoor seating because of the pandemic. In fact, Baz Bagels pretty much closed off their entire interior. They're using it. It seems like they're actually doing a lot of business like shipping bagels and stuff. Like they convince people like, if you moved out of the city, keep getting your bagels from us. So they have like a big operation inside the building, and then they've moved all their dining outside. And so I'm sitting on a table outside, and these 2 women are sitting next to me on a table, and we all have our coffees. And this guy walks down the street, and he just picks up this woman's coffee, and he goes, "This is mine now, thank you," and walks away. And it took like 20 seconds for them to be like, did that just happen? Yeah. So, I mean, that kind of thing happens. In a city of 10 million people, you're going to get a few weirdos.
Yeah. Interesting.
And one of the unfortunate side effects of outdoor seating.
This is mine now, and just kept walking.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, sometimes I felt that way when I need a coffee and I don't have one. Like, I would steal one.
Yeah. Fortunately, coffee's not too expensive, and maybe that guy really, really needed that coffee.
Maybe.
The woman didn't actually seem too bothered by it.
Well, I guess I'll get another coffee.
She just went and got another one. Yeah.
Fun.
New York City.
Too bad you didn't catch that on video. It'd be a viral TikTok.
Yeah.
By the way, I installed TikTok and I've become mildly obsessed.
Oh yeah, I noticed that you followed me. Yeah.
That's a topic for another day.
Right.
All right, my friend. Travel safe.
Yeah, it was good talking to you. I'll catch you when I get back home.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Why did Nick do a weird thing with his voice?
Why did Nick do a weird thing with his voice?
Yes.
It was his microphone.
Why doesn't a microphone do?
Testing. Test. Here. I'll tell you. Let's see. You want to jump up here?